There is a space where you are all you need, where you are all you want. All there is here. Welcome to the Source Connection, conversations about who we truly are, the possibilities of creation and the new earth we are birthing, with your hosts, Tarah Long and Liz B.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Source Connection. Thank you for joining us again today. My name is Tarah, and I'm here with Liz. And we do come to you today with our flowers and our suns and all of us. So join us. Welcome. Let's take a few minutes to relax, to relax. So take a breath. A deep breath, a few deep breaths, whatever feels good for you in this moment, to come back home to yourself. And I want you to feel yourself wherever you are, anchoring. Just anchoring in this moment that you are here and how amazing it is that you are here. And that we are here together. What a miracle. What a miracle to live this moment. And to feel the anchoring of your light. A force more powerful than the mind could ever know. More perfect, more whole, more complete. Bringing all of yourself to this moment, not hiding anything. Let's rest here together in our fullness. If there's any discomfort that comes as you sit in the silence, whether it's in your body or your mind, it's okay. Just let it be there. Let it be part of the fullness of you without judging it or making it mean anything at all. And as you feel anchored in yourself, in your own light, I want you to feel yourself anchored in the light of all beings and connected by the thread that connects us all, heart to heart. Infinite being to infinite being. A connection that could never be severed because it's always just been one. Feel the togetherness. Just on that level. That needs no words or labels of any kind. Feel yourself becoming more and more of that infinite space and embodying it here and now in your beautiful physical body. And together, let's take another breath. And just releasing everything. Breathing in the light and breathing out the light. And then coming back to the space with us.
I was having a hard time settling today because of the conversation we were having before starting. What came to me is that we've been severed from expressing affection and exploring affection with others, and then that leads to everything ending up being sexual. That makes sense? We don't. I think about women in tribes, and that this is my romantic idea about what that would look like. But they're sitting together, they're cozy. A lot of times you shared spaces with many people, so you literally were close-bodied to other humans, and the deepening of the connection through that, just being able to touch and feel another at the physical level, that then encompasses many other levels, the subtle levels, the energetic levels, everything that we can see or touch, but are communicating at every moment. And the isolation from others in modern society, we tend to have very small, either groups of people or households, you may call it. And you don't get as much of that. And so the fantasy of connection has been weaponized against us through porn and sexuality in that way. And I think that then when you do have a strong connection with somebody, especially if it's someone you feel attracted to physically, that tends to immediately go that way, because there's no refinement in maybe knowing that a touch would be enough, that a hug, like a deep hug or an intentional moment, would satisfy. I'm giving no context because we were talking before about it, but
before we pushed record, we were talking about relationships and polyamory and all sorts of things. I love that. And it resonates so much that, especially in a Western culture, well, the US specifically, I find, when I've been in Europe or visited Europe or other countries, it's a little different, but for sure in the US, there's this sense like a touch it means something, or it has to mean something, or, oh, that's going to lead to, sex or something sexual or XYZ, or it's illicit somehow, or when really we're just made to touch each other, in a way that doesn't have to be anything other than like, oh, I'm expressing my gratitude, my love, my like for you, whatever. And that's okay, whether it's male, female, whatever, it doesn't even matter, right? It doesn't even have to, if there's an attraction or not, if it's just a friend, and then there's that whole thing with women, if they're expressing affection, that whole weird thing that has happened with men where they're like, ooh, yeah, come on, make out or something, just like hugging your girlfriend in love,
Also showing men affection.
Oh yeah, it's a big one.
Being able to hug, but not just, that little like, hey, the little pat on the back that you're
the
just
like one-armed kind of hug. Yeah.
Okay, we do this because I guess we do this, but there's no embodiment of that. And just to see men doing that. I was fortunate enough that I grew up in a family who really treasured that. And so my dad, my uncles, my cousins, everybody hugged. They hugged.
That's sweet.
It was really sweet to not even think about that until later when you start seeing the contrast of that in society, and to think like, oh, people actually feel uncomfortable doing this. And There's also, you're talking about the culture here. You can talk about the culture where I grew up, which is very physical, and that also comes with its own downfalls, where people feel somewhat entitled to other people's bodies.
Mm.
So I grew up, and I'm just walking by. If I'm at a a social gathering, or you're at a place with other people, you go to a bar, you go to a place, and there's music or whatever thing, that some men feel entitled to just grab me by the waist and pull me in and tell me that I'm beautiful. And I don't appreciate that.
Yeah.
I've never had. I don't know you. Don't touch me. I've always had that attitude.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I feel you. Yeah. Oh, I feel you.
And so, and then other people also taking advantage, because the way we greet in Brazil, we give 2 kisses on the cheek, right? It's normally cheek to cheek, unless you know somebody that well, you want to really kiss them, right? Or they want to put their mouths in your cheeks. But it's generally like a cheek to cheek, like a
yeah.
And also, as a woman, you would feel sometimes taken advantage of that. Just a little closer, just a little tighter, where you're kind of, like, I didn't give permission to this, but that boundary being crossed so easily, because it's just what we do. What do you? Nothing.
It's so subtle, right? Like, what do you mean?
So
that's just what we do. Yeah, that's a really good opportunity to learn and create those boundaries. But if you're young and you grow up in that, and maybe until you're older, you don't realize, or you don't know, if no one's ever said to you, if your mom's never, or dad is like, hey, like, that's not okay, maybe you don't know, and then you have to learn that for yourself.
That awareness happened for me when I had my child. And I started to notice how demanding people were of her affection. And I had to go, wait a minute. Well, you don't have to hug anybody you don't want, especially when we go down there. I have aunts and uncles who are like, oh, give me a hug. Just she doesn't want to give me a hug. And I'm like, she doesn't need to give you a hug. She doesn't want to.
Yeah.
It's almost like making a social contract that has been there, that you didn't sign, that you didn't agree upon, but you were just birthed into. Therefore, you must accept. And so it took me a long time to even realize that somebody could have the option in that. And so, as much as we were talking about, the ways that our society at large and our ways of being have shortchanged us from touch and all of that, I do appreciate here where you would shake somebody's hand, and if you feel like you're close enough to them and both agree to a hug or somewhat of a different touch, then it's there.
Yeah, there's of course the pros and cons, I guess we could say, to to all of it, and it's really, as we know, just about creating whatever it is that you want, and that requires boundaries, it requires self-awareness, it requires asking for what you want, what you feel you need in any relationship.
It's really knowing yourself enough, and continuously knowing yourself, because needs may change, and awareness may shift, and ideas we've had about who we thought we were are constantly fine-tuning themselves, and all of that. And so being open to being who you are at every moment, right? And listening to what every moment needs and what you need from every moment as well.
Right. Yeah, knowing that we are such dynamic beings, and even in relationship with someone you've been in relationship with for 10 years, it today might be different than it has been for the last 10 years or yesterday, or, so both kind of understanding there's not an expectation there to be a certain way or do a certain thing. It's just really, and that alignment with yourself, which is basically what we do here at the Source Connection, or what our intention is, right? Is to, like, that is number one. And when you follow that, then everything else just works itself out. Yeah.
It's so simple.
So, we haven't said that in a while. I feel like we haven't said that in a while. It's so simple. I don't know.
We just had to right there. That was the moment. I think once one decides to be in relationship with oneself first and foremost,
Yeah, that's right.
everything else will mirror that. So I decided, and we've had conversations about this before, a while ago, that I was going to be my best friend because I had to live with myself for the rest of my existence.
Yeah.
And all the negative talk that I had, in my younger years, and all the just, I don't even know if negative describes it, but just very belittling, very like depreciative, I want to say. I remember the moment in time where it was really clear to me that I had to make the choice of who I wanted to be for myself, and that was not it. I'm done with this. I don't talk to anybody like this. Why would I talk to myself like this?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I started becoming more aware of that talk that was inside of my head, and the little moments where I would catch myself doing something, and then it would go, and I was, oh, wow. And at some point I had a name for it. I don't remember what I used to call it. But I was like, oh, such and such is here.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I've had names for yeah.
It helped me become more aware of it, like almost like putting it as a different entity. That's not me. There's something that's happening here. There's an awareness of what's happening. And I named it, and I remember now. I want to say it was like, I don't remember. But to the point where that relationship with myself and everything that was going on around me became inside of me, and I say around my own being, right, became my first priority. Like, I need to clean my own house first.
Yeah.
I need to learn how to talk to myself if I want to be of any value to others. And of course, parallel to the ongoing effort of becoming more clear in who I was, that just leads to being more clear with others and just being more embodied and all of that. But it was the first thing I had to do. It was like, oh, yeah, I can't talk to myself like this. There's a part of me that at a moment recognized that there was a boundary that I was not going to cross anymore because I wasn't deserving of that crossing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's absolutely self-love and self-acceptance, and leads like you said, it's just a mirror for the whole rest of the world. We do teach people how to treat us, and it's how we treat ourselves. Yeah. And just having that awareness of, hey, that's not me.
Right.
Something that we can perceive in that way, that we're aware of, it can't be us, right? Because we're aware of it, we're witnessing it. So that includes actually all of our thoughts, because we can witness all of our thoughts and go, hey, that's not me. It's just the processing machine that that is valuable for us, for sure, but not anything to, what do I want to say? It's not like your mind has a thought and you go, oh, that's the truth, right? Because it is if you want it to be. But it's so all of our thoughts, everything we say to ourselves can be questioned. And is it serving us? Is it not serving us? Is it reflective of the love that we know that we are?
Yeah. We have a thing in our house here that we say, you don't have to believe everything your mind tells you.
Yeah.
And then another inquiry is in life affirming, as you were saying, really express the depth of what you are. Do you have something that you used to practice or continuously practice that helped to refine that awareness of that presence of who you are beyond the mind or the feelings or whatever we want to call it?
Yeah. I mean, it's like been such a journey, as as we all know. It's not usually not an overnight thing, right? Where someone goes, oh yeah. But for me, the one of the I guess moments I can remember the most was when I was feeling dis-ease in my body for so long in very dramatic way, when I suddenly had the awareness that that wasn't me, that the illness, whatever was going on in my body, the healing that was happening, right, that I associated with something being wrong, a disease, naming it, labeling it, saying it's mine, all of these things, when I was like, wait a minute, ding, that's not who I am. That's not me. That can't be me. Even if it changes from day to day, it can't be me, right? So that's when that start. And then I was like, well, that goes for everything then. It has to. If it goes for this, it goes for everything. So in terms of a practice, I mean, gosh, so much work, self-work, work. I don't like that word, but at the time, I guess it's what I would have used. Empowerment teachings, enlightenment teachings, meditation. There's not like a one and done, right? It's what's in the moment that is needed. And now it's such a default that I wouldn't even consider that any of those things would be me.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, I feel so grateful, to have that default setting of like, oh no. And then when someone else close to me especially is experiencing that, there's a reflection, or at least an invitation of a reflection. Like it's like, when things are like record is scratching, it's like, oh no, that hurts my ears. Like I can't even, so I invite for a different sort of perspective, but everybody has, as we know, their own timing for all these things. So yeah. How about you? Do you have something that you're aware of?
Yeah, for me, the practice of meditating was a clear game changer. And I was able to just sit down and be comfortable with the silence outside and just really notice the mental chatter and the cluttering of the inside. That's when I started to go, oh, I feel like ultimately it's giving yourself the time and the attention. And then I added breath work to that, which is so much. I'm a sucker for breath work. It's so simple. You don't need anything. And I'm always saying this, but it's true. And it's almost like different ways to oil the machine. And it goes it's not only physical, but it's emotional, it's energetic, it's all in the subtle, aspects of us that it touches. And just the subtlety of breath alone, if you think about it, it's something you don't see, but you can feel. And so adding that dimension to the meditation, right? Yeah. To me, just, I think there was another depth, another layer that was exposed. And when you talk about the mirroring, what I've come to find for myself is, especially in the moments that I forget or have forgotten, all I need is to remind myself I'm loved and I'm loved. And how can I give myself this nourishment of love in this moment where everything seems out of place or chaotic or whatever you want to call it. And so to me, my practice is how much of that I can offer to others when they forget and when they mirror that discomfort to me. I know how that feels. And I know that that's a really icky spot to be in when you're talking to yourself like that. And I don't allow that in my experience anymore. And so the question and the inquiry for me is, how can I love this being right now a little more so he can recognize the love that he or she is.
Yeah. And themselves. Yeah.
Because as it brings this kind of stuff up, we can be faced with the resistance of the discomfort of that because we know how uncomfortable that is. So it's always the layers and the,
Mm.
the spiral, right?
Yeah.
Because I recognize myself in different places, and the gratitude I feel for that experience, because it's reminding me of what doesn't work for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something that that Oracle Girl said on a recent track that has stuck with me and resonated so deeply with me. And I just love, how it was put, but it kind of lends to this: when we are on our path of expansion and becoming more of ourselves and embodiment, enlightenment, and all of these things, there can be a very strong desire to judge oneself, or to say, oh, if I do this, if I think this thought, or if this thought is coming in, or if then, my vibe is going to go down, and then I'm going to affect everybody around me. And then it's going to be like, and then you just spiral down into this like, oh. And something she said was so beautiful, especially at the times we're living in, that, and she used, I think, fear, but that you feeling fear or anything, or having whatever thought, once we know ourselves as what we are, as light and love and all of these things, none of that can change that. None of that, it can't change your frequency, right? And this is, of course, something that many teachings talk about. And it's that once you know yourself to be that, what you are, the human experience of whatever is coming and going cannot touch that. And so just remembering that alone can, one, allow you, you can give yourself permission to then feel whatever it is, so because you're not resisting it. And then two, to remember that no matter what it is, I'm still the light. I'm still the thing that I know that I am, that is indescribable and can never be talked about in words, even though we try and try. So it's this automatic recalibration. For me, it's a automatic reset. And it actually brings us back into alignment with what we are, with who we are, like instantly.
I'm a firm believer that the only way out is through, and the feelings are communications. And so, how we decide to receive the communication, it's what changes the outcome. And you start seeing them as visitors, and you're like, all right, tell me what's going on.
Yeah.
You're trying to alert me to, what are you trying to point to that I'm not realizing about this moment, this situation, whatever it is. And there is a Rumi poem.
The Guest House, that one. Yeah. I love that one.
We'll put it in the notes. I wish I was excited, but I don't like fully, so I'm not.
No, I know. I know parts of it too. It's
Party at Guest House, and yeah, I hope you enjoyed this poem as much as I enjoyed this poem, and has brought me something nobody would know about me. I'm just remembering something like that. I don't know if we had that question, but
ooh, I like that question though.
I had a love affair with Rumi ever since the first word read his word, and I just see the love. I was just like, oh my God, I'm like, he's a distant lover.
Oh,
yeah,
Rumi.
Most beautiful way, not.
Oh, I know. Yeah, bring it back to the beginning of our conversation and how it's just a connection. It is. It's so beautiful and like curious and magical and wondrous how we can feel connections to people who have passed that we never met. I mean, in this lifetime, we'll say, or even in this lifetime that we've never met, but we just, it's just, it totally reminds me of the mystery. Every time something like that happens, there's no explanation for it. You've never spoken a word to this person, and it's like, I know you.
Yeah. Oh. Can I share something that happened?
Yes, please.
Yeah. So a few months back, remember that first time we went to Erasimo's house?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that day, I met Holly, this girl, woman, fairy, magical being, and we exchanged a few words there. And so a few months or a couple months later, I saw her again at Jeff Weitzman's movie screening. And I was like, my God, I met you at Erasimo's and we talked for a moment, but it was that immediate like, oh my God, can I just, and, like you can get each other type of like, oh my God. And she was like, I'm going out of town. Let's try to get together before I go out of town. And so we exchanged numbers. It ended up not happening, but we've been in touch ever since. And in October, I was watching the Health Freedom for Humanity Kansas event. And all of a sudden she's on stage singing. And I'm just like, what? So I take a screenshot of that. I send it to her. And I was just like, oh my God, look at this fairy goddess woman, just blessing everyone with this beautiful voice and this and that. And I never heard back. This is in October. And so today I got a voice message from her and she said, oh my God, life has been so like, a lot of moving pieces. I'm just now listening to your message. And she was like, you're live streaming. Oh my goodness, I can't believe it. And this and that. And she said a few other things. And then at the end, she says, I love you. I can't wait to know you. I love you. And I can't wait to know you more.
Oh.
Exactly this feeling of like, I know you.
Yeah.
I know, but to cut through everything that we've been conditioned to be able to tell another being and mean it at that level and to also be able to receive that.
Yeah.
Because I've had moments where I wanted to tell people, I love you, but I haven't had, I was like, what if I say this? Is somebody going to take, then goes back to the beginning of the conversation again.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So how is somebody going to take this? And that's something that I but I'd like to like relieve myself of. It's somebody else's interpretation. I just want to be able to say it. I remember having this feeling when we recorded our first guest, Tommy John, and I told you, I just love him and I want to tell him. And I was like, I can't. Wow, I can't. Feeling of like broken record of like scratch. I'm like, I want to. I can't.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest secret is we all love each other. I mean, there are beings where you feel it more, right? And you want to say it, but we really do all love each other not because we're giving our love to someone, because that's impossible. It's because we are love and we're meeting in that space where we remember we're love. And some people bring it out more in you, or you connect with their eye and you're just like, oh, yes, for whatever reason that is. But really, we're all in love with each other and ourselves all the time.
I think the name of this episode is The Love Connection.
Yes.
Or maybe shifting the podcast to The Love Connection.
The Love Connection? Oh boy, should we have...
Love Life by Tarah Long in Lisbon.
If you are looking for love, for a love partner who is open and conscious and right in and will...
Become back yourself and look in the mirror and there you go.
Yes.
You found it.
And then whatever is meant to come for you in terms of a partner, if it is, it sure will. Right? When we fall deeply in love with ourselves, that's how I've experienced it as well.
Yeah. Oh. And it's such a cozy place to be in because you can date yourself. Like I find myself dating myself all the time. Like I look in the mirror and I'm like,
girl.
I find pleasure in like I can take myself out on a date.
Oh, I love that.
Take myself out on a date and go and eat something and just and and it's just so wonderful.
I love being by myself and I love going out to places by myself and just like whether it's a meal or, I remember going to movies by myself many years ago, a lot, or just whatever, just strolling in the park, on the beach, all of these things, by myself is just deliciously delightful.
Yeah. I had to learn that. Not had to, but I learned that around 27 years old when I was in a deep, committed 10-year relationship from when I was 17 until I was 27. And so it was always us.
Yeah.
Us. We do this. Us. Especially at such a young age, right? There's a lot of things happening.
Right.
Where you're finding yourself and you're exploring, and all of a sudden you're in this locked partnership. And I remember the first time I went to a concert by myself, and I was like, this is awesome. It was like at the El Rey Theater, and I was just like, this is epic. I don't need anybody.
Nope. So you don't have to ask anybody anything about what they want to do, or like
there was no there wasn't a deeper awareness of that feeling of self-love, because a lot of that journey started then, of me finding who I was, what I like, what do you want, not what us and we and all of that, right? And I remember that experience being so such a revelation.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is fun.
Yeah.
I went to see the Claxons. I think it was at the El Rey.
Claxons, I don't even know.
Yeah, I think they're from England, but it was like a party band. So fun.
Oh.
This is epic.
Oh my gosh.
And I was totally just with myself, enjoying the moment and completely, But then I've had other moments where in that same self space with much more awareness. I remember going to see this band from Portugal, Buraca Som Sistema, and I was having such a good time with myself that inevitably people around me started having a good time with me. So all of a sudden, there's a girl rubbing you and dancing with me, and I'm just like, oh, it's epic. They have out this like little animal masks, and I remember putting mine on the back because I wanted to see, and in your face dancing and everything. And there was such a playful atmosphere, and everybody was just together and playing and allowing and really coming together as this individuals, but in this space of fun and I mean, and everyone was in their own space, but I'm just talking about my space.
How your experience,
how radiant that is when you, and I find, to me, the definition of attraction or finding someone attractive is that deep embodiment of who they are. Because sometimes you may look at somebody and you find them beautiful physically or whatever, but you don't feel it more than that.
Yeah.
Right? You're like, oh yeah, that's a good looking person and it's good to look, but then it doesn't
Yeah.
And also somebody that you would normally not necessarily find physically attractive, but you're like, wow, there's something about that person that it's very, very
right. And you're just like a magnet. Yeah. I've experienced all of those things. Yeah. And I used to go to concerts by myself all the time in Austin when I lived in Austin, Texas, because there's so much live music there, right? If I wanted to see someone, and I'd just go, I'd just be like, I'm getting my ticket, I'm going. I went with friends too, and the best thing being alone when I was living in Europe, and I would just go out all day and just walk around Paris or wherever I was, going to museums, and it's just the best. It's just the best. And it did. And at the time, like you, maybe I didn't have as much self-awareness of, the depth of myself and who I was, but that was building, that was nurturing that was actually building that relationship with myself, the foundation of ooh, I can be with myself. It's wonderful. I don't feel discomfort. I don't feel, this is great. And that's when I finally, did stop looking, quote unquote, for a partner, because for a lot of my, younger years, I did, right. That's part of the thing that we do as a culture, and that I did. And then when I completely was like, no, man, I am so good. I'm so good. I'm so really good on my own. If I never have a partner of any kind ever, And I dipped in and out of that, a lot in my 30s. And then finally it dropped everything. And that's, of course, when I met, Jeremy. And I was like, really? Do I want
Let me check my schedule.
Let me just look and no, but you know what I mean? It's just like, so then it just becomes a bonus, and like whatever is happening is just, an extra, like just a cherry on the sundae or whatever, versus just already being so full. Yeah.
We're talking about being in Europe and walking the streets of Paris. My best international solo exploration, I was in Amsterdam. I always wanted to go to Amsterdam, and my sister at the time was working in the Middle East and as a flight attendant. And she said, I have a flight coming up in the next few weeks. It was literally in the next few weeks to Amsterdam. Do you want to make it happen? And I was like, oh my God, yeah, let me see what the schedule, let me see the family life, and if that would align. And I went to the Middle East. We met, we stayed there for a few days, and then we took this flight to Amsterdam. She was there for just a day. She had to go back because she was working, right? And I stayed for like 5 days. I remember exactly. And I'm like, my body is all feeling the excitement of just being in a place where you don't know anybody.
Like, I love that.
It's so good. You know nobody. You're not going to bump into. I mean, the chances, of course, you could bump into somebody you know, but the chances are minimum.
Rare.
None. Yes.
Yeah.
And just walking, and I remember the best thing for me was just to be like, I'm just gonna walk. I'm just gonna feel the flow and just go where I feel that, like the impulse to go, with not a lot of planning.
Yep.
Right. Just drop myself. I would take the train and drop myself in the middle of the city center or whatever, and just be like, where do I want to go? And then I went to a small town about an hour away from Amsterdam, and found myself arriving there like 7 o'clock at night. It's dark in this little town too, an Airbnb in this beautiful little house, right? And I'm just like, this is crazy. I'm like in another part of the world. I have no idea who these people around me. I have no idea of anything, literally. Yeah. And to find yourself in that space where anything and everything is possible is so rich, and it's so invigorating. And the next day they had a couple of bikes. I took the bike and I just started riding the bike. Well, I don't know where I'm going. And I ended up in the beach at the shore with the mountains and everything. And I was just like, wow, life is so epic if we would just allow for it.
Yeah.
And just putting yourself in these situations where you give yourself a break from who you think you are and from other people's expectations.
Yeah.
And so I highly recommend that if everyone listening, if you can take some time to just be by yourself, and that can be a few hours, that can be a night, a couple of days. You have the luxury of being with yourself and just being in your own time, doing everything you want to do exactly how you want it, the time you want it, and not being
spontaneously. Yes. And also, like, getting out of your environment is very helpful. It's not completely necessary, but it's like, being in a place where you're totally autonomous and nobody knows you, it gives you this automatic, like, pass to, like, who am I? Well, I don't know. Nobody has any expectation of me to be anything, and neither do I. Don't have to either. And you never do, actually. But, we do get more sort of like solidified in our ways, when we're in the same thing, doing the same thing all the time. But yeah, there's nothing like that feeling. It's just total freedom.
Yes, to all of us and all of you listening to this in this moment, may you always find the freedom of who you are at every moment. It's my deeply spiritual love.
Yeah, you don't need to go anywhere to do that or do anything special. It's just it can just be a little help. but it's not necessary. It's always right here.
It's a treat.
It's a treat. It's a bonus.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Feels like a,
before we end,
yeah.
excited for our Patreon explorations.
Oh yeah.
And we've decided to make the Patreon a little bit more of practical insights and practices and offerings in that way, and kind of more like boots on the ground, shall we say?
Yeah. Yeah, like the one we just did with Liz. I mean, with us, but Liz was leading, and she led us through some beautiful breath work. So that's over on the Patreon. We're going to be doing another one coming up, and I'll lead us through something, something practical, so that you can anchor yourself and your source and your light, and just remind yourself of that.
Yeah. If you feel called to join and support, reach us out there. The dream of that is that we have a strong community where we would be our own support system, and we would be having live events together, and maybe even branch out to, collaborations and other things. So if it sparks an interest in you, find us at Patreon. Don't forget to like this so others can also be exposed to this co-creation. Share it.
Share it. Yeah. Share it with anyone you think would benefit, get value. And we feel in this community of the Source Connection that there's so much to come, because we are in such a pinnacle time, such a transition, such a shift, that there's so much I don't want to say to be done, because that sounds like, work and all of that, even though it will require effort. There's so much possibility for creation and unfolding of all the beautiful, wonderful things that we already know are true inside of us. So we hope you'll join us if you feel called.
Thank you for being here with us as always. Much love.
Yeah. Bye.
Did you know that the Source Connection has a Patreon page? In this Patreon page, we share tips, practices. We get a little bit more intimate with each other.
Yes, so join us over on our Patreon page if you would like to connect in another way. We hope to see you there.